Today, I'm going to show you how to fix a leggy jade plant. This is one of the most common issues that jade owners deal with. Why does a jade plant stretch out and become leggy? The answer is simple: not enough light. When jade plants don't get enough light, they try to solve the problem on their own by stretching out to try and find the nearest light source. After I fix this jade plant, I'll go over the ideal lighting conditions to help prevent your jade from becoming leggy in the future. This plant is the perfect example for fixing a leggy jade plant. In fact, that's why I bought it. My goal is to prune it back so that it can be in a position to get back to the normal jade structure that we are familiar with. For this project, you're going to want to use some scissors. I'm using these. They're my go-tos right now, but you can also just use regular household scissors because jade plants are typically very soft plants. I just made that first cut, which is essentially what we're going to do with all of these branches here, but there's a little more that goes into it. On your jade plant, you're gonna notice these rings. I call them growth rings. Some people call them nodes. But what's important about them is that when you prune your jade plant back, the new leaves and shoots are gonna come out of these rings here. This plant is a great example to show you the growth that you can expect out of the rings here. A few months ago in a propagation video, I did a hard prune on this plant. And as you can see from the rings, I have the shoots coming out. And what's interesting is you can see they're coming out symmetrical, left, right, like that. I turn the plant around and the next rings are gonna come out in the opposite direction. So when you're making your prunes, keep that in mind. Now that we know how the jade plant is going to grow back after we prune it, it's time to select the right place to make the cuts. Now, as you can see on the end of these branches, it's heavy and it's kind of weighing the plant down. So we want to make sure that we make the cut so we know that when we put the weight on the branch, it's not going to do the same thing, because that's what we're trying to avoid. So I'm going to make my cut all the way back here to play it safe, because as you can see, it's starting to arc down right about here. So I'm gonna go one in and I'm just gonna cut it a little close to that one right there. Perfect. I left some space from the cut to the nearest node. And what's gonna happen next is this end is going to callus over. And what might occur after that is you'll notice this part will shrivel up a little bit and you'll think, oh no, it's dying. But that's actually the natural process. What happens is this will shrivel up and die and eventually fall off, and then this will callus underneath. So don't panic if that happens, it's totally normal. I want to point out something very important, and it's this little shoot right here. I'm going to make this prune, but I'm going to keep him on there. The reason you want to try and keep some leaves and shoots off of the plant is because, well, they power the plant through photosynthesis. They absorb the sun, and essentially the more of these you have on there, the faster you'll get growth. Let's quickly go over watering your jade plant after you've pruned it, and make sure you stay tuned to the end because there's a special bonus about doing this process. When it comes to watering your jade plant after you've pruned it, you don't need to keep the soil moist all the time. In fact, it's good to let it have a nice dry back before you water it again. After pruning this jade plant, it's looking pretty bare, but not to worry, because as I showed you in this previous example, the jade plant is going to grow back fast, especially when you give it proper lighting conditions, which I'm going to talk about now. If you've done a really heavy prune like this jade plant just experienced, it's best not to keep it in direct sunlight for long periods of time. In fact, for the first few weeks, I like to try to find a space where it gets a combination of a little bit of direct sunlight, some diffused light, and also some shade, because that's really important not to fry it. It needs a little time to acclimate and to start shooting out that new growth that we're expecting. Jade plants grow great indoors and outdoors, but obviously those are two different settings and have different lighting conditions. I'm going to start by talking about the best lighting situation you can give your jade plant when growing it indoors. When you're growing your jade plant indoors, it's best to find a window that has plenty of light. So if you're in the northern hemisphere, you want to find a south-facing light. If you're in the southern hemisphere, you want to find a north-facing light. This window is ideal because it's going to give this jade plant enough sun during the day, probably a few hours, and then good indirect light the rest of the day. If you don't have the sun, that's not a big issue as long as your jade plant is getting really good indirect light. It's no secret that jade plants grow faster when they're outside. Not everyone can do it, but for those who can, you're gonna wanna give your jade plant at least 4 hours of direct sunlight. They can handle anywhere from 8 to 10 hours, but if you live in a zone like me, and it can get over 100 degrees, you're gonna wanna maybe balance the amount of light with the high heat. So just keep an eye on your plant. It's going to tell you when it's not having a good time and adjust as you may need to. What's really cool about fixing your leggy jade plant is the cuttings that you're left over with afterwards, because you can propagate these really easily, and propagating branches like this is the fastest way to get an established jade plant. And I made a video on propagating branches just like this, so feel free to check it out, and I hope that you have a great rest of your week.